Robert Alfred Smallman, Kentfield. Got my third degree in 1953. Well, I went through the line. I was master in 1959, and I was on a number of Grand Lodge committees, including jurisprudence, and I was the inspector for a number of years, and I was a senior Grand Deacon. So we waited till the appropriate time by counting faces that were in the lodge room to vote on a stated meeting, and we got through and got a sponsorship for the Ross Valley DeMolay through and started it here. And Mike and I both had 12-year-old daughters, and we were interested in Rainbow and Jobs, and we agreed that he would put his daughter in Rainbow, which was meant in Marin and San Rafael, and I'd put mine in Jobs. And so we did that and actually supported those, and I was associate guardian of the Jobs daughters for a number of years, and we had up to almost 100 members in the Jobs chapter at that time. We accomplished a lot of things. One of them was the blood drive, which the Lodge had never been involved with. And what I did is I was working in San Rafael, and I called up 25 of the members who were working around and said, gee, how about meeting me up at the Elks Club for a drink on Friday night? So they all came up figuring they were going to get a free drink, and when they got there I said, well, now you're going to get the free drink, all right, after you give a pint of blood. I figured out one time that in that year as a master I had attended over 300 Masonic functions, whether a committee meeting or whatever it was, in 1 year. Well, I've often wondered what would have happened to me if I hadn't signed that blue application. I mean, I have easily 250 or 300 very, very good friends. A lot of them are not here anymore, but that I would not have had except for that. We had the advantage of knowing a lot of the original members of this lodge that were here. And when I came in, there was Bill Bliss, who had been secretary for about 40 years. Winnie Fishel was, a treasurer. Winnie Fishel was a secretary for about 40 years. Porter Bliss was a past master, was a Tyler for about 30 years. And Malcolm Dahl was the head candidates coach, and he'd been doing that for about 25 years. Great men. Yeah, the lodge originally started in Fairfax in a church, and then it met in Ross, on Ross Avenue, in the second floor of a building owned by Chet Huntley. And one of the things that was interesting about that is that there's certain times in the ritual the secretary has to go behind his desk and turn a rheostat to change the light from either dim or bright. And the one in the Ross place would squawk like mad every time you touched it. And we were so used to that, and when we moved in here and the rheostat didn't make any noise, we thought there was a terrible mistake in the ritual, and everybody would sort of stumble from then on. So then basically, originally in the lodge, most of the members were employees of the telephone company, PG&E, and the Western Railroad, Northwestern Railroad. And a lot of peace officers. They had the sheriff of Marin County, the San Anselmo police chief, the Ross police chief, the Larkspur police chief, were all members of this lodge, and there were a lot of firemen, particularly the Fairfax Fire Department were members of this lodge. I look better when I'm out of focus.
I don't look better when you're out of focus, though. If I can't get you in focus, I don't look good at all.
Bobby Dale Holloway, San Rafael. Originally Louisiana, born and raised in Ruston, Louisiana. I received my first degree in September of 1966 and my third degree I received for Christmas on December the 23rd, 1966. Well, I have served a number of years on the temple board, so I enjoy it. It's been nice, and I've enjoyed bringing some members in. That's a big thing. But we did have one other event that went on for several years in a row, and that was Steve Balzan doing barbecuing chickens out in the parking lot. He brought in a truckload of cinder blocks and built a big grill, and that's where he cooked the chickens. And it started out where we had quite a few people, and as it built up, it got to a point, if you didn't get here early, you couldn't even get within parking or walking distance. People were here. They really enjoyed it. Steve put on a fantastic lunch, because he always had it at noontime. And it was just outstanding. But the big thing with that I always laughed about was everybody tried to get in and get the first chickens off of there so that they could eat and be ready and be there at the last person to get served, because they wanted to buy the extra chickens to take home with them. Oh, that was a big thing, and you had to get in line early. Well, it did have one little thing here that a friend of mine, and we were both correctional officers at San Quentin. They were kidding us quite a bit about not bringing in the inmates, keep them out there, but just keep bringing the staff, which we brought in several, and it was good. I'm glad to see it. I just think membership of the lodge is the prime responsibility of everyone. No, I think that we're going to have to do the things that we have been doing and talking to people. You never know where you might come up with a candidate. But I think that we have to keep doing things and getting our name and faces out to the public, because right now it seems as though people are not joining almost anything. They're just too involved in too many other things, and they don't seem to really have time to join some organization. Well, the assistant chapter dad for Demon Lays here, I worked with the Rainbow Girls here for a while. I spent 7 years on the Guardian Council for Job Daughters. I've been in Eastern Star, where I've served 4 times, and I wound up into the Shrine, and I've been on the divan. This year is number 6. But I've enjoyed all of it. My Masonic family, or my family that were Masons, was very light. I only had 2 uncles. One was a Shriner, and the other was a Mason. And I thought about it in years, and after I got out here and out of the service, I wound up as asking a guy about joining, and he says, fine, I'll get you the paperwork. But I think that my Masonic friendship has served us in a beautiful way for many, many years. You get somewhere and you have a problem, first thing you look for, at Masonic Lodge. And I guarantee you they'll help you. They always have.
I started my career in Masonry in Boulder Lodge in San Francisco, which was about the same size as this lodge when I first came over here, of 500 members. He said, hey, you've got a good one here. Well, I got into the working here of this lodge, and although I was never master, I was a treasurer for a couple of years, and I helped Charlie White out many times on funeral things, and I certainly did work on the building here, especially when it caught fire one time. Some stupid guy. I boy, did I get installed. That they found out that I knew something about electricity. And you're talking about the kitchen out there. Well, there was one fellow that was a plumber. So he did a plumbing work, which would you put in the sink, and I wired the stove. And I think it took us a couple of months we were working down there. Although my name doesn't stand out, I've been very active in this lodge. And in the meantime, I met guys like Charlie White. I met him over in San Francisco. What are you doing over here? I said, well, he's working on a building, and I was working on a building. Charlie was the contractor on it. That was the St. Ignatius. St. Ignatius, I think it was. So I was very, very interested in this, getting involved here, and I sure as hell did. Number one, I'm a policeman in San Francisco, have been for 40 years, and I also had an electrician's job behind me. I belonged to the union. I'd love to be master of the lodge, but I can't do it and hold down 2 jobs. So I did get in the line. I've been very active, and I've appreciated being accepted by the people here in Marin County. And I think a fellow sitting alongside of me knows some of the stuff I did. I'm going to say one thing. This gentleman is the only guy that ever fired me every job I've ever had. And I appreciated it for what he did. I said, hello, Reverend.
Hello.
So when I got over here, I just fell into it. And that's it. I made friends. And I'd like to close, but I've never said that I joined Fairfax Lodge, and I'm very happy I did. Thank you very much.
Burl James Franklin, Fairfax, California, about 1972, I believe, and I went to sea off and on. Finally, when I got my final one in 75, I got my master license in there. I mean, a full term there. Went through the line real fast and wound up master. So I can't even remember the year, but it was probably in the late 70s. Well, let's see. I've always meant to go down south in Texas. I was there when I was a kid. Either my great-grandfather or great-grandfather was a Mason. So he was Mason. Grandfather was a Mason. My dad was a Mason. I was a Mason. So I just couldn't get out of it. One heck of a pile of nice people. But it seemed like every time, like with me and Charlie Ray, every time you need somebody, they call us. So I've been a temple ward for quite a while. And whenever they needed, I guess I was pretty busy, pretty active over the years. I don't really know how I fell into it, but I got along with the kids, the kids and stuff, so I guess they just gradually swept me in. I just didn't mind. I got along good with all the young people, and then below when we had, we took one of the basement rooms, rigged a meeting place there for them, whenever else. So, we met some pretty fine people. Over the years, they turned out to be some real top-notch people. I would put it this way: I've never really been disappointed in anything in the Masonic works. I was around Masons all my life, so I guess my dad got into Masons when I was at 12, something like 12, and all of his friends and stuff. We were always in different places. In fact, I got smuggled into a lot of Masonic things when underage. Masons is it, and then I've run in Bridge and Structural Iron Workers and Sailors Union Pacific for a good many years, but I've been retired for about 20 years now. Most of it's resolved around the Masons. I met some real fine people like Ray and Charlie and a lot of others, you know, and I've been friends for many years. And then the other lodge in Fairfax and the Santa Fe Lodge, I can't remember some of the guys' names now. They've spread around, but by and large, I'd say I've met a pretty fine bunch of people over the years. You know, Bob Newman, I think, was over on the left-hand side. He was a hell of a fine guy, but we lost him. And then Jean de Bear, we had to put up with him all these years. But no, I mean, I can't really see any great difference here. You know, it's. I think probably what it is that so many of us we work our line way up through the line, and we appreciate what's going the way up and down, and whatever. You don't run around picking points on it or anything. I've never heard. I don't think I've ever heard any of these guys put anybody down on it. Like I said before, by and large, they're a darn fine bunch of people. That's the main thing, I guess. You don't get too big-headed. I think you talk to John and Charlie and Ray, and they say it's, by and large, it spreads out real darn nice. Pretty good bunch of people.
Jean-Guillaume de Ber, de Morière, de Barros, de Braganza, d'Orléans et de Bavière. There are more, but that's all. My mother had the opportunity to marry the pretendant of the throne of Portugal, and she became the Marchioness de Barros de Braganza, and the rest avec. And then that's how I got to be the Marquis de Jean-Guillaume de Ber de Barros de Braganza. I lived in Saint-Anselmo. It must have been over 40 years. Well, when I got my third degree, the worshipful master, you know, congratulated me, and then he said, take a seat in the lodge. So he pointed to this seat there. That's the junior steward. And then after a while he says, you know that little book that they have, I want you to memorize these 3 or 4 pages there. And that was the charge for the master's degree. And then I remember it. It took me time, but that's how I became a master mason. But you know that fellow, he used to go in a pasture where they had the cows and the horse and all that, and then he says, I'm reciting my lesson by heart and nobody bothers me, and I don't think the cows understand me either. We used to have a Christmas party here every year. They asked me if I wanted to be Santa Claus. I said, well, yes, I'll do it. So they gave me the dress and everything else, you know, for the Santa Claus, and then children used to come around, and we used to give them little toys or fruits or vegetable or whatever it is, but none of that dangerous stuff, you know. I had let my beard grow so I could be a real Santa Claus. And then my oldest daughter came to me, and after what she says, you know, Santa, your voice sounds familiar. I says, never mind, go and sit down with the others. She had recognized it. That's it. That's a little episode for that. But we used to have big parties here for Christmas, and I wish we would re-establish the thing. You know, we used to have those lines and then a little hook on there, and then they used to pick up things, and that was nice, you know, especially the young children. We used to have full house all the time. It must have been, I must have been treasurer at least 25 plus years, more maybe. But I was also, at the same time that I was there, I was the secretary of the Masonic Building Association, right downstairs. So I had two positions to carry. I think I've been member of this lodge for about 40 years. When I go to the Scottish Rite once in a while, and then I love the presentation they have, you know, with the dinner, and then also with the various group, the Hawaiian dancer, and, you know, all this kind of stuff. They have a really good program for the people. I belong to the shrine. I'm a Shriner, but I became a Job's daughter, however. I was given the honor to have the title of Job's daughter by the worshipful, whatever they call them. And I have been a Job's daughter now for about 20 years, I guess, 15 years. I'm proud to be a Job's daughter. It was easy, yeah, but you got to really learn and do things when you're going up the line, you know. You start over here, and then, as I say, the master told me to memorize, you know, the charge for the 3rd degree, and I did the job. But the first time I did it, it was a catastrophe. But the second time, I knew what to do. And I went through all the chairs. In those days, you used to go through all the chairs from junior to senior steward, from senior steward to junior deacon, from junior deacon to senior deacon, from senior deacon to junior warden, from junior warden to senior warden, from senior warden. And I didn't miss one to master. That's all. Yeah, thank you. I am glad that to be here, and I thank you very much for having interviewed me. I didn't even remember how many years I was a Mason until I saw it in the book on the trestle board, and then it says Jean, 40 years. I said, oh, hell, my God, 40 years, I don't believe it. But it must be, you know, Bob Newman keeps his book straight, right, as you know. Okay, have a nice day, everyone.
My association with the lodge here started in December of 1962 when I was initiated into D. Malay right here in this room. And over the course of the next 5 years, as I took my part and went through the chairs in D. Malay, I got to know many of the members of the lodge because they served on the advisory board, and I attended lodge functions that were open to the public. I do remember that during that period, Steve Balzan, I remember that. I remember being at one of the barbecues and looking down the stairs there and seeing a bunch of them sneaking over to the back of the truck. So I knew what they were doing. Also, it was a big thing here for a number of years. About that time period, each year the lodge would put on a Christmas party for the kids and grandkids, and it would be in the dining room, and all kinds of booths would be set up with games and refreshments and so forth. And then we had then the boys and girls would come in here to the east and meet Santa. I think some of those years Santa had a French accent for some reason. Good old Jean de Bear. There was I felt such a close relationship with the lodge when I was in D. Malay that when I turned 21 in 1967, I couldn't wait to apply for membership. And I did, and my birthday was in October. They wanted to initiate me in December. I said, sorry guys, you're gonna have to wait, I'm getting married that month. But then in January, they initiated me. By February, I was getting my 2nd degree, and in March, I got my third degree. And never looked back. In 1969, less than a year after I had gotten my degree, I was being drafted because the Vietnam War was going on. So I was spent basically 4 years on the East Coast, and then as soon as I got back, I was back active with the lodge. And then 1974, John de Bear wanted me to go in the line, so I started out as senior steward. And but then there was this great big guy ahead of me named Carl Owen, hell of a worker. But he was junior deacon, but he was having a little trouble with the ritual work. So anyway, we worked out a deal, and he stayed as junior deacon for the next year, and I became senior deacon, and then finished the line and was master in 1978. And it was great to have him following me because he was, like I say, he was a great worker. We started off the year, I had an event planned every month. In February, we had a crab feed, and at that time, it was all the crab you could eat. It was, you know, we'd get 200 plus people here. Well, unfortunately, just before the crab feed, it rained, and the price of crab shot through the roof. I think the tickets were only $4.50, and I think I still hold the record. We lost something like $1,400 on that crab feed. I don't think we've had an expense as big an expense as that since then. One fellow also that was very active in building the building was Rolla Coughlin, and I believe he was a plasterer.
Yeah.
There were some years back when we saw some movies of the being built of the building here under construction. I remember seeing a picture of him plastering the walls, and it was also thanks to Roland that that we're in the financial position we're in, because he had in his will to leave his home after his wife passed away to the lodge, and that's what happened, and the trustees have managed it well ever since. So luckily we're not in a bad financial position. I served as senior warden again in '84 when we had a hole in the line, but by then I was starting a family, so couldn't serve as master as I was living up in Roanoke Park at that time. But luckily Bud Whedon stayed in as master for 2 years. And then I had to became inactive for a while there with the lodges. I was going through Eastern Star with my wife, and we were raising our 2 daughters. But I'm certainly happy I was able to get back in and become active with the lodge again. So, I do have one goal. I set a goal when I got my 3rd degree in March of 1968. I said, well, I want to be around to get my 75-year pin. So I figured it's only making 96, so I have a shot at it.
No problem. No problem.
Raymond James Piambo. Born in San Francisco and live in Fairfax, California since 1962. Yeah. Let's see, I started out as a senior steward, junior deacon, senior deacon, junior warden, and senior warden, and master in 1980. Yeah, my greatest day was when I raised my own son in this lodge and to become a master mason. That was a great day for me. I believe he was junior warden or going into junior warden station when he moved to Napa back in then. So he had to drop out of the line at that time. No, I've been president, I just don't recall how many years, but I started back in 1979, I believe, on the board, and I was president for many years, and I'm still on the board today, and we've always had a good slate of officers in the board of directors. We always got along very well, and we always took our time before we jumped into a contract, or eventually we got the lodge to where it's at today, and I'm very proud of that and the officers that served under me. And we have a fine president at this time. Great thing happened here many years ago. That's an attorney in our lodge named Lee Young. And he was the attorney at the time, and eventually he'd left all his money and assets to Fairfax Lodge, and he asked if I would be sure to make sure all those funds would be spent by the lodge for masonry in general and to keep this building going, and I promised him that that would happen as long as I was here in the lodge. And I'm proud that we still have those funds available, and I don't think we've ever used any. And I'm very proud of that. But they're always there in reserve to take care of our lodge, as he wished. Well, they're all great brothers, and they was always there when a function was to take place or to give the master a hand, and I'm very proud of the brothers of this lodge. Yes, I was in Scottish Rite. I believe I went into Scottish Rite in 1972, and I used to be in a lot of the classes and degrees at that time. And I was awarded a black hat when I was there and so forth. And then after a few years, I didn't attend as often as I did due to the business I was running. And then I was involved in Shriners, and I became vice president in, I believe, 1971. And then I decided to get in the line at the lodge and and go through the chairs, so I didn't continue as president, but my brother did. I belonged to the Order of the Jesters, and Knights Templars I became a member, so I went through the degrees both ways. And I enjoyed the years here with the Rainbow Girls and the Job's Daughters and the Order of the Eastern Star, because every time we had a function, they were here to support us and help us, and we just had a lot of wonderful years with the youth groups, and we still do enjoy the ladies from the Eastern Star and husbands, brothers. And like I say, they're always here to help out, and they never turn anybody down in the lodge when they're asked to do something. They get along just great. When a man wants to become a Mason, it should be done through his heart more so than anything else, and that eventually that man will ask to become a Mason. And it's, when I reflect back at the time, you really don't know anything about a Mason or what they do or anything else about them, although my own father was a Mason, but you're strictly in the dark in your mind as to what a Mason is, and eventually you are in the dark becoming a Mason. So as far as advice goes, to get along, and if there's ever a problem, you sit down and discuss it outside of the lodge, and don't let a problem go unresolved, especially when you're an officer in the line in the lodge. There should always be harmony and peace in this lodge, and there's no reason for anything else. But sometimes there may be a problem like that, so I always advise brothers not to have that kind of a problem. The lodge is no place to have that. Well, learning to be a man, learning how to enjoy life and being respectable and so forth, and it led me down the right path, and I'm very proud of Masonry in general.
Charles Leslie White, Fairfax, 59 years ago. No, I joined Mission Lodge in San Francisco because that's where I lived at the time. And I became the officer's coach there, and so then when I moved to Fairfax and built my house there, I demitted and joined Fairfax Lodge. I started out in that chair back there at the junior deacon, and I progressed through the line and became master. And I enjoyed every bit of it. I really did. I was the only one in California that went through the shrine and was potentate, and then come back and went in the line and became master. And the Grand Master, he would always talk about the fact that I was the only one that had done that particular thing. So I was president of the Marine Shrine Club in 1972, and after that I became commander of the commandery here that met in this building. The Royal Arch had an outdoor degree up in the Valley of the Moon. It was always a full moon when they would have that outdoor degree. And they needed somebody to ride a horse to be the herald. So I volunteered for that and did that. And it was after that that I met the man that appointed me as Marshal of the Shrine. And that's a 7-year line. I went through that. In my time in the Shrine, I've been emeritus member of the Ritual Divan. I directed that for 25 years. Emeritus member of the Board of Governors for the Hospital Board. And now I'm just an old man. This was the fez I wore as potentate of the Shrine, yes. And we had, in my year, I had a tour of the Orient because we used to go over there and get new members. So I did that, and I did my ritual work naturally, and had a great tour of the shrine. The man that gave me this medal, his name was Henry J. Weiser, and we called him Bud. So when I put his rumpus room in for him in his house, I got a sign from Budweiser Beer, and that was in his rumpus room. That's about the extent of that jewel, other than, did we get the fact that these were claws from a lion's paw? They're band with a band of gold, with the insignia hanging in the center of it. There's not many of these left around anymore, I don't think. We had a fire here. The board asked me if I would change the women's toilet to a handicap toilet. There was a lot of old insulation in the walls. It burnt like crazy. So when I had to use the solder, take the fittings off the old line, of course I had the water off in the building, remove the old fittings, and I began to smell something, and so I had to get those fittings off, the new fittings on, and get them soldered. And by the time I got that done and the water turned back on in the building, it was a pretty good fire going but in the walls. And I did a lot of damage in this room. The heat got tremendous. The rug on the floor was just absolutely melted. This beam on this side was charred very badly. So when I started rebuilding it and everything, this beam couldn't be used. It was just charred deep enough that they couldn't salvage it. So I went through some of the old drawings and found out that these beams were made in Oregon. Called up the company up there. They were still in business. They went through their past records and they found exactly the dimensions of those beams that were made and brought down here for this building. Everything was redone, furniture, everything, all redone. Okay, my name is Charlie White. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you loud and clear, sir.
As Master of the Lodge this year, it was my goal that I had certain things I wanted to accomplish. And one of the things that I wanted to accomplish was the documentation of my fellow brethren who have given so much to this lodge and who have been here for decades. Their knowledge, their experience, and their wisdom is something that we'll never be able to have again. And thus I decided to ask my friend Ken to do a documentary on their stories and some of the experiences that they had. And by doing this, we're hopefully going to be able to promote Masonry to future generations, let people know what this lodge stands for. Though you've seen a lot of senior gentlemen express their opinions, our lodge is full of a lot of young Masons coming in right now. They're in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. And they all have a certain reason why they want to come in. Some may be that they had other relatives who were Masons. Others have just a desire to have the fraternal relationship and the spiritual experiences that you get from being a Mason. And no matter what the reasons are, as was said earlier by Ray, that if it's from the heart, there's a lot of rewards you can get by being a Mason. And our lodge is a very friendly lodge. We've always had a lot of comments to that direction. And my website that I've helped develop this year is also opening up avenues where people can experience the things that we've been able to experience here. Our trestle boards, which we're having open to the public now and having archives of it, will also show our experience throughout the years where we're able to document what particular situations we go through at particular times. For example, this year we gave to Haiti. There was a drive for the Heroes Fund to help our 6 charitable organizations raise money for veterans coming home, wounded warriors, and the USO. And each master brings his own take on what he wants to accomplish in the lodge. And I feel very blessed to have worked and through the chairs and to be able to sit in the East and be master of Fairfax Lodge for 2010 and try to add my benefits for the next generation of Masons. Thank you very much. And during the beginning of the year,
he did everything he could to keep me from going in that room. He never roped another door shut.
The battery gets weak, and look out.
And I think you're doing a fantastic job. Thank you so very much for everything, Bob. Okay, I'm through.
thank you, John.